So in this short video, we'll be discussing some morality issues regarding atheism and theism. And, there's always these exchanges, you hear from the atheists saying, oh, you don't have to be a religious person to be a good person. I'm an atheist and I could be a good person. I treat my neighbor in kindness and I do good things. I do charity and so forth. But in this discussion, we'll be going through a quick argument clearly debunking the atheist position on why we bring up the morality issue and why atheism is actually in a worse position than believers. Now, a few years ago, I did a video regarding this issue, but this will be more of an in-depth detail with a clear argument showing how clearly the atheist is in a worse position when it comes to morality and who is more prone to doing evil and which group is prone to abstaining away from evil. Now, I can give you an argument to say that, for example, if we had, let's say we could discuss stealing, theft, for example. Now, if we look at theft, what stops an atheist from stealing something or robbing the bank or robbing their neighbor and so forth? Now, of course, an atheist will say religion doesn't necessarily stop me from doing that. It's my conscience, or it's just a good nature in me that prevents me from doing such things, or it may even be law enforcement and so forth. But you see, here is the underlying difference between the believer and the disbeliever in this case regarding theft. A believer, no matter what excuse, will always measure up with the same excuses that will stop a person from committing a crime. Now, if an atheist says the law enforcement will help him stop crime, well, the believer also will fit that category, right? He will not commit a crime because the law enforcement will get involved and he fears the law enforcement. So the atheist will also have the same criteria. He'll fulfill the same criteria as well. If the atheist has a good conscience and it's his own conscience that will stop him from thieving and being a good person and not stealing anyone's property and so forth, the believer will also match that as well. So even if there are 100 cases or methods or reasons that will stop an atheist from committing a crime, a believer will match him each time on every single criteria. However, this is the underlying point. The atheist will always have one criteria that he will not have. He will not have compared to a believer. And that is the belief in God, the fear of God, knowing that God watches him no matter what. See, an atheist doesn't believe in God. So, he doesn't care about that. And he doesn't think that God is going to judge him on the day of judgment, where a believer believes that God watches him, his every move. Therefore, the believer knows that he will be judged on the day of judgment. He won't just escape and get away with his crime. So you see, the believer will always have one degree over the atheist. So even if there's 100 reasons why the atheist won't commit a crime, the believer will match him and in fact be one criteria over him in preventing him from doing the evil. So that argument can never be refuted. So for example, if we had let's say I invited 5 people in my house. One was a Jew, the other one was a Buddhist, the other one was a Hindu, the 4th person was a Christian, and the 5th person was an atheist, right? I'm going to trust, and let's say, for example, something went missing in my house. Let's say my video camera went missing or my phone. And, I had these 5 suspects. Now, if these 5 suspects, if I was to choose which one did it, My heart will go with the atheist. I would believe that no matter how good these people are, I would still go with the atheist. Why? Because the rest of them are believers in God, right? So they believe in the day of judgment and they believe that they'll be judged. Whereas the atheist, he doesn't believe in that day, right? So even though, let's say I had to make a choice between them, right? My opinion would go with the believers being innocent and the disbeliever possibly be the one not telling the truth about it, right? Why? Because at least the believers believe in the day of judgment. And I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that the believers, are not possible suspects. They are. I mean, they're all suspects. But if I was to choose which one is more guilty in the heart, which one would I suspect that is more guilty? I would suspect the atheist, because at the end of the day, he doesn't believe in God, he doesn't believe in judgment, so he's more prone to doing evil and lying about it. Whereas the rest of the believers, at least they're God conscious. Yes, they may lie about stealing things from my home, but at the end of the day, I would still trust them over the atheist, because for the simple reason that they have one criteria higher that they fulfill, and that is to believe in God, who sees things that we cannot see, who hears things that we cannot hear, and who's a watcher over us. Whereas the atheist doesn't believe that, so he's more prone to evil and he's more prone to lying, because the atheist feels that, hey, there's no judgment day and I'm not going to be judged for it. So, it doesn't really matter whether, I lie or not, or I cheat or not. I'm not going to be judged. As long as law enforcement doesn't catch me, I will just do what I will do, and if that is to get away with it, that's fine. So who would you trust? Would you trust the believers, or would you trust the disbeliever here? I would rationally go with the believer's side. Now, an atheist may give all these excuses and so forth, but the main point and the main argument is that no matter how many excuses the atheist gives to show that, they're less prone to doing evil, you still have a less criteria in preventing yourself from evil. And that is that you don't believe in God, whereas the believer believes in God and he believes in judgment. So due to that failing to meet that premise and that criteria, the atheist is in a less position to claim they are more prone to abstain away from evil. This is totally not true, because of not fulfilling that premise and that criteria. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.